Well, President Obama is stepping into the negotiations over raising the debt ceiling. He's meeting this morning with Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, and later today he'll have Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell over to the White House. But will these talks lead to a deal, and when? Andy Laperriere is the head of policy research for the ISI Group. He joins me live from Washington this morning. Andy, welcome back to InBusiness. Always good to talk to you. You've been writing about the right and wrong storyline on what's actually happening in these debt conversations. What is the right storyline from your perspective for the business community to be focused on?
Well, yeah, thanks. Nice to be back. You were referencing a piece I wrote last week, and I think a lot of people have the idea that both parties are just trying to push to get past the election, and that there's really no interest in making any of the hard decisions. And actually, the piece I wrote argued that the Republicans have made hard decisions. They put out a tough budget. They're under a lot of criticism for their changes in Medicare. So I think the reason we're talking about a true $2 trillion package, a much larger package that could be a credible deficit reduction package, is that the Republicans, in order to go back home, have to get something for their vote to raise the debt ceiling. So I think we're talking about more cuts than people would have imagined a couple of months ago.
And now that the president's more directly involved, you do believe that a $2 trillion cut is possible?
Well, I think that almost everyone involved here in these Biden negotiations and beyond thinks it's a better plan to try to get one vote to raise the debt ceiling enough to get past the election. And I think everybody's pretty much operating under the formula that John Boehner outlined a couple months ago, which is $1 in spending cuts as measured over 10 years for every $1 increase in the debt ceiling. So I think pretty much everybody's on the same page as far as the broad outlines, that it's going to have to be roughly $2 trillion in savings, roughly raise the debt ceiling $2 trillion, gets you past the next election. And so they've got rough agreement on a lot of that, but now we're coming down to, well, what about Medicare? What about taxes?
Right.
And those are the tough issues that separate the parties.
So if the tough issues get pushed off a little bit, the ones that may be more in focus are some of those questions about other ways to raise revenue instead of an outright tax increase. We've been talking here at Bloomberg about changes in accounting, last in, first out accounting changing. That would obviously impact producers, retailers. There are all sorts of quote unquote tax loopholes that might be altered. Which ones are you advising clients to be sort of most concerned about? What's most vulnerable here?
Well, I'm really torn on what they're going to do on revenue. I'm not sure the Republicans are going to be able to go along with anything. I think at the end of the day, there will be some kind of revenue measure in there, and Republicans will get some Medicare changes in exchange for it. So I think what the LIFO has in common with the CPI adjustment, which they're also talking about, not a different formula for indexing the tax code, what they all have in common is that they're not really visible to the average person, and they're not a rate increase, so they're a much less visible revenue source. So I think that's the most the Republicans could go along with. I think beyond the LIFO side, the other options probably don't have as much of a direct market impact. I think it's on the spending side where you're looking at healthcare cuts and defense cuts, where you're having some of the big market stories in this package.
Now, you're also today focused on some of these Supreme Court decisions that are coming down, and you think this is key for 2012. You do think that there will be a health care mandate decision by the court before the election.
Yeah, that's my guess. I think the way things are shaping up is there's going to be a couple of decisions here by appeals courts in the next few months, and they're going to, at least one court is likely to find the mandate unconstitutional. So you're going to have differing appeals court decisions. So it's likely that in that case the Supreme Court will take the case, and we're seeing the big decisions issued now. This is the time of year that they come, and so it'll be about this time next year that they would issue an opinion on whether the individual mandate requiring people to buy health insurance is constitutional or not.
So, but how does that, decision on the constitutionality of that health care package affect the conversations that we need to be having about funding of some of these entitlement programs? I mean, are they interlinked here?
Well, I think what it does is if they strike down the mandate, it makes the health care law pretty unworkable. You have insurance companies can't charge based on risk, but at the same time, you don't have to buy health insurance, so there's a major adverse selection problem, and you could have a breakdown in the individual health care market. And so that'll be happening at a time where they'll also be talking about big changes to Medicare and Medicaid to help balance the budget. So they're all going to be in the mix next year. I think what it does, though, is if the court were to strike down the mandate, it would elevate the health care as an issue in the campaign.
All right. Thank you very much, Andy. Always good talking to you.